We see it in the institutions around us. Great ideas transformed into grotesque, rust-encrusted machines. Maintenance of the system now saps the energy of everyone involved, and the entire mechanism is grinding to a halt. Writer Daniel Quinn described this as the culture of maximum harm. It is a way of life entirely dependent on financial extraction, where every member is dedicated to chasing an ever higher point of material affluence, regardless of the cost to the environment. Compare this to the ancient Saxons. They were highly literate in the workings of nature, managing fenceless fields where sheep roamed freely. Shepherds expertly guided the flocks to improve the grasses and herbs, creating a culture that integrated with the land rather than consuming it. As this modern machine begins to fail, we often react with fear. Western culture has developed an estrangement from the natural world, leading us to view the end of a system as a final punishment rather than a necessary phase. But pouring more energy into an extractive mechanism only hastens our own exhaustion. The path toward a sustainable future isn't found in repairing this machine, but in allowing it to reach its natural end. When a seed is buried in the earth, it is cut off. It sits in the dark soil, shutting out the light, a vessel of potential locked away until the casing gives way. For that seed to become a tree, its current form must fail. Its hard shell has to fracture and be entirely destroyed. The seed must die to its old self for growth to begin. Our human institutions follow this exact same cycle. Building a culture that restores its environment requires the complete and total breakdown of the unipolar structures that currently consume it. Anthropologist Mircea Eliade noted that ancient societies used ritual death as a mandatory passage. As detailed in this text, a novice was symbolically killed and laid in a trench, covered with leaves. This process allowed them to shed an imperfect embryonic state and be brought to birth as a completed person. Transitioning to a stable future requires our society to undergo a similar process. We must be willing to bury our old identity as consumers and finally accept the end of the old ways. The first practical step in this transition is intentionally severing our dependence on the global monetary economy. By meeting our own basic needs, we remove the leverage that extractive systems hold over us. This shift is most visible in agriculture. The current global food system is dominated by corporate consortiums that use patenting legislation to control the very biological materials we need to survive. To counter this, permaculture pioneers like Bill Mollison focused on radical self-reliance. This hands-on resistance centered on open-pollinated seeds, varieties that allow individuals and communities to harvest, save, and trade their own supply year after year. Saving your own seed transforms your role in the economy. You move from a cycle of annual debt to a system of self-sustaining production, where you control the means of your own sustenance. Taking direct control of the local food supply is a physical act of separation from the corporate grid. It is the moment the individual begins to function independently of the old shell. As the old system recedes, we begin retrofitting, using the physical and social ruins left behind to engineer a new way of living. We use old mill buildings and existing social networks to host the community's new functions. This requires a shift in how we define real capital. This text argues people are our most undervalued resource. Wealth is measured in human capability. Further down is an inventory of survival needs: air, food, shelter. Here, health and skills become our primary assets. We have proof that this works. Pioneer families successfully build permanent homes from the raw materials around them. Using only local dirt, cooperation, and their own hands, they created functioning communities without a global supply chain. When financial structures fail, the most durable asset is a network of capable individuals collaborating to repurpose their environment and sustain themselves. Once the extractive institutions have been replaced, we enter a permanent culture, a society designed to last as long as the land it inhabits. Daily life in this culture isn't dictated by an artificial clock. People live synchronously with the seasons, marking the year through harvests and solar rhythms rather than through frantic excursions to chain stores. Decisions are governed by the 7 generations principle. We weigh every choice, from how we manage a forest to how we build our infrastructure, against its impact on those who will live 7 generations from now. This long-term view changes our relationship with death. This text from Eliade's research reminds us that life is not a brief appearance between two voids. Instead, death is recognized as another modality of existence, an essential transition that feeds the ongoing cycle of creation. A tree only emerges once the seed is gone. Do not fear the end of systems that can no longer sustain us. Become the living seed. Be willing to shed the old ways of consumption and help catalyze the institutions that will actually build our future.